The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
We have an official timetable after Tyler Herro surgery, but the Heat might be being too optimistic. We'll tell you why.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast.
I'll just start with reading the Heat's official statement. The Miami Heat announced that Tyler Herro underwent successful surgery today to alleviate posterior impingement syndrome in his left ankle. The 90-minute procedure was performed by blah, 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 blah in Miami. Herro is expected to miss around 8 weeks. So 8 weeks. That's the official timeline that the Miami Heat announced on Friday. That would put his return at like the first or second week of November, which doesn't sound horrible. When you and I, David, talked on Friday, it was very much like, we don't know when he's going to come back. We have no idea what this procedure entails in terms of rehab and what the realistic timeline is. But the Heat are saying 8 weeks, which when I saw 8 weeks, I don't know about you, David, I was like, oh, that's less than what I thought they were going to say.
Well, 8 weeks, I mean, that's a significant chunk of change. And at the same time, that doesn't mean he's going to return to anywhere close to full strength, even if he does come back.
Yeah.
So we're looking at him coming back. And at the same time, as we've heard Eric Spoelstra say a number of times when a player returns, it's like, well, there's a different matter of him being able to have some contact work and be able to go full 5-on-5 and then be able to get into game shape and then even just incorporating him into the lineup. And so there's going to be an additional amount of time. Being able to return to active duty in 8 weeks is one thing. Being able to put yourself back in the shape that you should have been to start the season off, that's a completely different story. So that could take even an additional chunk of time.
Yeah, and Herro expected to miss around 8 weeks. I guess you would assume that means he's going to miss 8 weeks of games, but it can also just mean he's going to miss 8 weeks of basketball activities and then come back in 8 weeks and then start maybe ramping up into what you're talking about there, which is basketball shape. So, and all these things are usually, you might as well just put an ish at the end of everything. 8-ish weeks, right? Like you and I know that. Like whenever you hear this stuff, it's 8-ish, right? It could be 7. It could be 9, right? 8-ish. But we're going to keep going. I do think that might be a slight too optimistic, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But let's keep going with what else we know. It was reported as an ankle and foot injury, left ankle, left foot injury. It is the Heat announced that it is specifically posterior impingement syndrome. So what is posterior impingement syndrome? It's when the tissues at the back of the ankle are compressed between the ankle bone and the heel bone, at least according to Google. That's what that says. So the pain that Tyler Herro has been feeling is in the back of his ankle. So there's pain and tenderness in the back of that ankle. Obviously, that impacts flexion. It impacts landing on that foot for run and jump athletes. That's obviously a big deal. So that's what he's dealing with right now. Why get the surgery now as opposed to immediately after the season? This was something that we were asked a lot about following Friday's episode. Herro's ankle has been bothering him since the offseason. They attempted PRP injections, cortisone, other solutions before they decided that the surgery was necessary. And then they decided to get the surgery. We talked about this on Friday. People immediately asked, well, why not get the surgery sooner so that this doesn't infringe on the start of the season? Talking to people, nobody is saying exactly when this started bothering Tyler Herro. But my understanding is that this is something that started bothering him in the offseason. So people are asking, oh, well, he should have had the surgery right after the season. This wasn't bothering him right after the season. There would be no point to go under a knife right after the season when nothing was bothering him. So it wouldn't have made sense to have surgery right after the season. This wasn't a situation where it was Jason Tatum suffering an Achilles tear in the playoffs, and then you get surgery as soon as possible to try to ramp up his, recovery as soon as possible. No, this had started festering and bothering him in the middle of the summer at some point. Again, nobody's saying really exactly when, and with these kind of things, it's hard to know exactly when this all started. But obviously something, I'm assuming, not reporting, I'm just assuming it happened during a workout of some kind, right? and it slowly started to build, and it became an issue. This is also talking to people. This kind of surgery is usually a last option. And it's a last option, not because it's some sort of like dire surgery. It's actually kind of considered a routine surgery. It's not like a big deal surgery, but it's not uncommon for professional athletes to try the injections and the other forms of rehab before undergoing the surgery part of this. So the timing is unfortunate, but they also didn't wait any longer. So I wanted to clarify that in terms of like, why didn't Tyler Herro just do this right away? This wasn't something that was bothering him in the playoff series against Cleveland, right? This was something that just sort of cropped up during the summer. I don't know if you have anything else.
I think it's important because we did see a lot of we did see a lot of blowback from fans, even to the point where there are some conspiracy theories that the Heat medical staff might have been doing this on purpose in order to be able to accelerate the tank or something like that. He was trying to avoid surgery. This isn't Shaquille O'Neal famously with the Lakers waiting to get surgery for as long as possible until the start of the season and having Phil Jackson publicly complain, well, why didn't he do this sooner? This is working together with the team and saying, we're trying this, we've tried this, it's not going away, it's going to get worse. What do we do now? Let's go to surgery because that accelerates the time frame for his return, and hopefully he'll come back from this pain and injury free. There was
That's
no avoidance,
the hope, right?
Nothing
Exactly.
purposeful. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So this is a positive thing that he's getting this now. I know a lot of people are seeing it somewhat negatively. You're saying that this is going to be some kind of part of a willful ignorance on his part to do it sooner. But no, he was trying to avoid it and continue with his workouts in the hope that it would go away, as many people do. They go, this is a last resort. I don't necessarily want to go this route. But no, unfortunately, the pain was so much and unbearable, and he just wanted to get rid of it and be injury-free, and so that's why he had to eventually elect surgery.
It's one of these things, too, where your ankle starts to hurt, and that's not new for athletes. Like, when you land and the bottom of your feet hurts, that's not new for basketball players. So for a while, he's like, oh, this just kind of hurts like it usually does. And then after a while, like, this kind of hurts more than it usually does. And this kind of hurts longer than it usually does. And then you start kind of undergoing testing and stuff like that. So that's why this isn't like, oh, I tore my Achilles, I know right away, or I tore my ACL, I know right away. Let's get under. It's also not nearly that surgery, right? We're not talking about an Achilles tendon. So I'm sorry I keep bringing that up, but like I was just trying to use examples. To your point too, why it's used like Tyler Herro and the Heat working in tandem on this. The part I yada-yada'd over from the Heat statement, it's Dr. Thomas San Giovanni was assisted by Heat team physicians, blah 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 blah, at the Doctors Hospital Surgery Center in Miami. So yes, the doctor that Tyler Herro and his representation found was also helped found by the Miami Heat, and this was all done in collaboration. So in terms of conspiracy theories about whether or not their tank is on, or if this has anything to do with extension talks or anything like that, nope. No. I'll leave it there. Is he expected to make a full recovery? Yes, they are hoping that this solves the problem. It's a pain problem that it alleviates the issue going forward. The expectation with this kind of procedure is it's not one of those, oh, is he going to be 90% of what he used to be? This is a pain tolerance issue. The deal is that you undergo this procedure, it doesn't hurt as much, and you can just sort of recover. It's not, in other words, it's not a structural issue, which is when you get into the ACLs, the MCLs, the Achilles, and then you have that question of, can you return to what you used to be? The idea here is you have the surgery, you're fine afterwards. We talked about this Friday, but just kind of going along with this FAQ kind of theme, who starts in his place, who needs to step up? Davion Mitchell, you and I agreed on Friday, probably has the inside track into starting. I think this means that Drew Smith, who is hopeful to be back by training camp, there might be more of a role for him from the outset. I think Pelle Larsson, who we saw, David, on the ball quite a bit for Eurobasket. I'll be very interested to see what the Heat allow him to do in training camp and in preseason. Kasparas Giacochonis, who they drafted in the first round in June. There might be more opportunities for him earlier in the season where it looked like he might be looking at a G League route early in the year. And then obviously there's the Terry Rozier part of this too. Does this mean Terry Rozier is going to play? And it's really interesting because we're getting reporting over and over from national outlets, and it's something that, David, you and I have talked about quite a bit on this show, is that the Heat are looking to move on from Terry Rozier before they're looking to get him on the court. Right now, there's a possibility that Terry Rozier can have a bounce back season. When I say they're looking to move on from Terry Rozier, as we've said 100 times on the show, it doesn't mean that they're trying to attach assets. It doesn't mean that he's we got to get off of him or else they're under the luxury tax. It's not like this dire situation, but they would rather use him in terms of facilitating another trade or perhaps facilitating another roster spot for a helpful player before that they really play him. A big part of this is the fact that about $1.5 million of his full contract is not guaranteed. And if they waive him, they can open up that $1.5 million and then create enough space to sign a veteran to a veteran minimum to the 15-man roster. But if he were to play and, for instance, David get hurt in the first game of the season, then that contract becomes fully guaranteed. And that option for Miami vanishes. And that would be a problem for the Heat in terms of them wanting to maintain their flexibility with the salary cap. So does this mean Terry Rozier will play? I think the way that they operate, they'll look at what he has in training camp. But if it becomes really evident that last season feels like that's going to be the norm as opposed to not the norm, I think in other words, there's a lot riding on training camp for Terry Rozier, David.
Absolutely. They're under no obligation to play him. This isn't somebody that they're invested in. He's not tied to any particular kind of hope like that would force them to say, we've got to give him an extended look. Like last year, I mean, we argued on this show about why Eric Spoelstra was playing him last year when there was no obligation to do so. And maybe even then the rationale was, well, at least you want to try to showcase what he's capable of in the hopes of maybe finding a potential taker. But we know that market's dried up now. So they played him last year when they were under no obligation to do so for any other reason than to showcase him and be like, anybody want to slightly use Terry Rozier to take off our hands? But now that there's no obligation, he's on the roster. I think everybody knows what he's capable of. It's not going to improve his value to any significant degree. They're not going to suddenly convince some team, you know what, the missing piece to our title contention is a 30% shooter from the field who's past his prime. So this is not, they're not going to try to do anything. Like at this point, somebody's going to either take him off their hands by February because he's an expiring contract in order to provide some salary cap relief, or because they're trying to move a larger salary of their own, or the Heat are frankly going to have to eat the cost of his contract. It's the final year. And that's it. We've heard reporting, I believe, from Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald that they've inquired into other potential trades, that they've looked at potentially buying him out, and that Rozier and his camp said, no, that's not necessary. I'd rather take the 20-something million that we're owed this year, because there aren't a lot of teams knocking on his door, even for a minimum contract, which is probably all he would get at this point in time. So there's really no reason for either party to move on at this point. And the hope, I think, for both is that he can rehabilitate his image around the league and say, look, no, I can still play at a fairly decent level, even if it wasn't what I was once capable of. I don't know that Terry Rozier ever had a high value around the league, aside from maybe his best season as a pro, his most consistent season, which is when Miami made the trade for him in the first place, because they had to move on from Kyle Lowry, who was producing nothing. And so that's why they were willing to include the first-round pick at that point. He was viewed at that point in time as a missing piece to their offense. It didn't quite work out that way. Now, they're under no obligation. There's no need to play him. And it would be more of a detriment to what they're trying to build and accomplish. And in terms of money, he doesn't provide that much salary relief, where waiving him makes any sense. You're going to have to eat the cost, at the very least, eat the cost and hope that maybe he can play decently enough to earn that money.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
Jonathan Kuminga's agent, Aaron Turner, has been on a podcast tour as of lately, interviewing with some mainstays around the industry. he says that Jonathan Kuminga is prepared to take the qualifying offer. Aaron Turner has been in the news a lot as of late, mainly for the interview that he did recently with Brian Windhorst. Also, Anthony Slater of ESPN was sitting in on that. I say sitting in as if he doesn't work for ESPN. I sometimes forget, but they were interviewing him, Slater and Windhorst, about the whole Jonathan Kuminga situation. That was on the Hoop Collective on ESPN. And the big takeaway, kind of clickbaity, Jonathan Kuminga prepared to take the qualifying offer if the Warriors don't improve their proposed deal. Do you actually think Jonathan Kuminga would take the qualifying offer? I don't know. What we do know is that this has nothing to do with money at this point. The $40 million that would be left on the table, it's not the issue. The issue is he knows for a fact that at least Sacramento and Phoenix and Aaron Turner flirted some other teams that maybe had some interest in him or reached out about a potential olive branch, potential seed plant, some of that for maybe down the road in unrestricted free agency. But what we do know is that Sacramento and Phoenix have offered him a role that he wants, which is, hey, we're going to put the ball in your hands. And you know how Steve Kerr wants you to be Aaron Gordon or Sean Marion? No, you just be Jonathan Kuminga. That's all we want from you. So he knows he can start games, finish games in other places. There's no guarantee that JK is going to have a role here, despite Steve Kerr saying that at the beginning of the year, they're going to give him as much run as he needs to see if this can work with Jimmy Butler and the rest of the guys. So he wants to develop. It's very clear. It's not just about being a star. It's not just about making his next contract. He wants to develop and does not feel like he can do that with his minutes going left and right all the time, which you can't really argue that. There's not always rhyme or reason. And if there was rhyme or reason, he would have played in that LA Clippers game and most of the Rockets series because he was getting like 18, 20 minutes per game leading up to that series. So there's no guarantee that he's going to have a role here. It's Steve Kerr's word at face value because Joe Lacob even acknowledged recently, or the reports were that Joe Lacob acknowledged that it's Steve Kerr's decision. He's not going to step in and tell Steve Kerr what to do. As long as Kerr's the head coach, doesn't matter that Joe Lacob thinks Jonathan Kuminga is the guy. Steve Kerr still needs to play him. So he wants to have the ball in his hands. He wants to develop his mid-range game. That's not his role in Golden State right now. So he'd have to sacrifice parts of his game in his fifth year. And that is why he wants a player option instead of a team option, a deal that's around, got to do the math in my head, $74 million, $48 million guaranteed, puts him at about $24, $25 million a year. $48 million guaranteed is a whole lot of money. Reason he wants that third year and says he's not signing anything but the qualifying offer unless he gets that third year player option or maybe even guaranteed, but no talks of that as of right now. It's all about that player option. The main reason he wants it, he feels like he's been, again, not really given direction on what his role should be. That's, according to Aaron Turner, not really given fair chances at times. And because of that, the confusion and him being in his now fifth year, he thinks that they should backload that contract with an incentive, which is that third year. So he doesn't want to pick up his stuff, move 3 months from now. He also doesn't want to sacrifice his game. Is he willing for those two things to sacrifice all this money? That is what we're trying to figure out and see if the Warriors would actually balk until the end. They've already upped their offer when they said they wouldn't. And they've now said that they will not take out the team option and make it a player option. And if that's the case, per Aaron Turner, Jonathan Kuminga is willing to sign that qualifying offer worth about $8 million per year, which takes away that trade clause and basically means that he hits unrestricted free agency next summer and you lose him for nothing. And it means it's probably pretty awkward this season as he's trying to navigate a role for a Warriors team that's not just like trying to figure something out. Like the Warriors are legit. They're legit right now. They need to win right now. And Jonathan Kuminga is the best bridge to win. I was recently asked on that crossover show yesterday. Ben Garcia from Locked On Suns, said, why don't you guys just trade him? Just trade him to us. Trade him to the Suns. We'll give you Royce O'Neal. You'll get a bunch of second-round draft picks, like whatever. You don't want him. Maybe so, in terms of not wanting him. But they want something in replace of him, if that makes sense. They want his asset, his value, to turn into something else of value, whether it's through a trade, whether I think the long shot answer would be Jonathan Kuminga just figures out what the Warriors are asking of him. It becomes a perfect marriage. Warriors are like 19-1 to start the season. They say we're riding this thing out. And in 2 years, Jonathan Kuminga is the future. That I think is the least likely scenario, but I guess it's still on the table until it's not. We've seen crazier things in the NBA. But there needs to be some sort of just meeting in the middle with these two. And we thought the 2+1 was the meeting in the middle because it was the Warriors upping their offer. Apparently it is not good enough. The Dubs don't want to do this ballooned qualifying offer that takes away the trade clause and basically just uses as an expiring contract trade chip, because make no mistake, $25 million on the books, assuming the player isn't injured or completely washed, like that is always a nice contract to cobble together into some form of a trade. And the Warriors want that contract on the books. They don't want to trade him for Malik Monk, apparently, and a potential first-round pick that's protected. So that's the situation that we are in right now. Now, one of the very intriguing things that I got from these two parties trying to squeeze each other, and a question that I think Anthony Slater asked Aaron Turner, the agent of Kuminga, they asked about the buy-in. If Kuminga takes the qualifying offer, will he check out? Will the team check out on him? Or if there's a deal that he doesn't like, will he be unhappy and make it known?
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to avoid having games where you might not be as locked in. I like to have a little bit more juice, a little bit more energy. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast.
Cam Johnson, Matt, we've talked about how he is a similar player, maybe slightly better player than Michael Porter Jr., who he is replacing. A lot of the conversation around him has been, hey, the lower salary helped Denver add Jonas Valanciunas into the mix. But rather than talk about the financial aspect of it, I think we should really focus in on how he changes who the Nuggets are, because I do genuinely think that they are going to be a better, more versatile team because of Cam Johnson's presence in their lineup. He will be a massive contributor to that. I'm curious as to your opinion on whether that's the case, why that is, what are some of the things that he's actually going to do with Denver to help them become the best version of themselves.
So Hurricane watches the show every single week. Love Hurricane, as always in the chat. Watches every single show. Is very down on the Cam thing. Thinks it's completely overrated. And he's in here talking about like if he doesn't have 23.75, and like he's not gonna have 23.75. That's not what he's gonna do. The best way I can kind of think to answer this is all of the elements that frustrated those of us that cover the Nuggets daily, even the things that they were good at, and offensively they were good, became stagnant, stale, and predictable in large part because of the limited capacity of their talent. That AG has actually developed and grown more into an offensive player. Like AG is a more complete offensive player than he's ever been.
Yeah.
Jamal is a better passer, I think, than he's ever been.
Yeah.
But I think you can probably say, like, scoring wise, hasn't either at best hasn't evolved.
Yeah.
And at worst has not really taken a step forward.
Yeah.
And that left kind of MPJ, right? And MPJ could hit open jumpers at an incredible rate. And every now and again would have great rebound games or a good drive. But like MPJ is not like a well-rounded player. No. He's, if you think of it like a radar chart, it's like there's these spikes on these things that he's good at.
but overall, the rest of the game is very small. MPJ has a very small game with exceptionally deep apex points, right? The things that he's good at, he's elite at. Cam is just like a more well-rounded player.
Yeah.
Cam Johnson can drive. Cam Johnson can dribble. Cam Johnson can run pick and roll. Cam Johnson can make a mid-range jumper, a pull-up. Cam Johnson can, easily get to the rim for a layup and make a contested shot. Cam Johnson is a shooter. Cam Johnson is more of a defender than MPJ, even if you don't think he's great. I'll say this. This is the kind of thing that looks awesome on paper, and it seems like a really natural fit. Cam is an exceptionally high basketball IQ player, which that was always a frustration point with Nikola, with Mike, and the coaches. Like, everything about this screams that it's a great fit, and the fit is the part that it's like he'll make all these other things better because of the fit. It's not about like individual just being good, because there's all these teams like Phoenix, who I continue to have believed in, where you have these individual talent levels, but it doesn't matter because nobody makes anybody better.
Yeah.
And the Nuggets have a lot of guys now that make other guys better, and Cam's better at that than MPJ was. There's a possibility that this is just it doesn't work. Like, the possibility is because basketball chemistry is ephemeral. It is a non-tangible thing. It is, to kind of put it beyond verbose words, it's mystical, right? It's a vibes thing. And you can't make up for that. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are like great friends. Great friends. Same agent for a while. It was going to be awesome in Atlanta. DeJounte was going to handle the defensive side. Trae was going to be the offense. DeJounte was a combo guard. It was going to work. They could not figure out how to play together. Those guys are buddies, and they could not play together. So there is the possibility that Cam is being overrated by the media, including us. But when we look at all of these factors, and in particular, if you just told me Cam was going to be a replacement level shooter who is better at tagging the short roll or covering on at-level coverage and getting back to deny corner threes, that alone, with nothing else added, would be a monster upgrade. I went through the way that the Nuggets got killed last year was at-level coverage from Nikola, easy pass to the corner, open three, or drive or a pump fake and drive for a layup or dunk.
Yeah.
That's how the Nuggets defense got killed. Cam helps.